This evening, Trump's legal team asked the judge for another 3 weeks to file a reply to DA Willis, a request that seems unlikely to be granted. Joining me now are former federal and state prosecutor Tali Farhadian-Weinstein and Danya Perry, former assistant U.S. attorney for the Southern District of New York. Thank you both for being here. I am not a legal expert. I am not a lawyer. I have no legal background. But just on its face, I'll go with you first, Danya. This looks like a pretty strong brushback to the president's legal team on both counts, or from both DAs, Fani Willis and Alvin Bragg. Am I reading that right?
I think you're reading that exactly right. So these are both local elected prosecutors who, even under the old heyday, under Attorney General Barr, would not, be within the confines of the Department of Justice. But these two prosecutors have shown themselves to be very independent-minded, and they are following the facts and running it down. And yeah, these were, both of them, I think your term brushback is exactly right. DA Bragg's office told the judge and Trump himself, in no uncertain terms, you've got everything you have millions of pages, and there's very liberal discovery rules in New York, and so that's your answer. Mm-hmm. Sift through the millions of documents, and you'll find it eventually. But
only in your lawyer's office. You can't look at those millions of pages to discovery on your own.
Yeah, and that is unusual, but under the circumstances, the judge found here that was warranted. And so he'll have to abide by a set of rules, that don't apply to most people, but do uniquely apply in this situation because of his tendency to flout those rules. And DA Willis as well, her office came back and said, usually it's not a great argument to say, well, you waited too long. But that is a strong argument, and Trump's legal team often uses delay as a strategy. But he or she also had some very substantive, good legal reasons with precedent to back it up to say, no, in this case,
no way, no how.
Once again, you get the brush off.
Wait, do you think it's indicative of their own belief in the strength of their cases, Tali? Is this a sign that they're like, you know what? We don't need to play ball on any of this because we're about to get you. Sorry to put it in layman's terms, but I just am trying to interpret what the message here might be.
Well, I think we actually have to take each case, Alex, on its own terms. I think it's sort of easy to always think of him as someone who's looking for delay as a tactic. You've got a decade of a track record of him always trying to find a way to drag something out. But I think what he's done in each of these cases is different, and we have to sort of analyze the responses differently. So I think what Fani Willis has said is this motion is both too late and too early. So as Danya said, it's too late because some of the stuff you're complaining about, it's like the structural, reasons for having a two-step grand jury in Georgia. You should have complained about that when we got started 2 years ago, and some of it too early because you haven't been injured yet. Nothing has happened. You're not a witness in this grand jury, and you actually have to be indicted before you can complain about the grand jury. I think what's happening in Manhattan is different. There's kind of a disconnect between what he's asking for and what the DA has come back with, because he is using the device of the Bill of Particulars to actually try to get some more law. He's trying to say, please tell me what that second crime is. And the DA is responding with, well, actually, a Bill of Particulars is about facts, and we're going to give you all these facts, as Danya said, through discovery. But I think that question of what is the second crime, a legal question, not a factual question, is hanging over this case.
Yes.
And is going to continue hanging over this case. And just because Donald Trump is the person making that argument, it doesn't mean that it's wrong. A broken clock is right twice a day. And in this case, I think he's actually has some good arguments on his side. And fairness and maybe the public interest does demand that he knows so that he can defend himself.
Do you think that the DA's response is insufficient?
I think that it's sufficient here because this device, again, is really about getting more facts. And the Bill of Particulars is not even actually that useful anymore now that New York law has changed and you have to produce discovery to a defendant early. But I think again and again, Trump is going to try to say, I need to know what that second crime is, or how can I defend myself? And I think it's a strategic decision for the DA to not tell him and to keep pushing that out. And I think, something that is going to make the case vulnerable all the way through appeal if it gets that far.
A lot of, not just Donald Trump, a lot of people want to know what the step-up crime is, that second crime that goes from misdemeanor to felony. And there are 4 breadcrumbs scattered in this filing, right, Danya? The DA's office effectively says Trump, the defendant, intended to commit or to aid or conceal 1, New York election law, New York tax law, New York penal law, violations of the Federal Election Campaign Act. Those are, I mean, without going into excruciating detail on each one of those are the laws we thought maybe the DA was looking at for that step-up crime. But having it in black and white, does that offer any certainty to you? Is there anything to read into the selection of those 4 in particular?
I don't think so. I helped co-author a report on this for the Brookings Institution many, many months before this indictment was actually handed down. And that's kind of what we thought. That's what everyone thought. It's, you know, maybe not great. We don't deserve great credit for that. And so I don't think this actually gives that much more. And to Tali's point, at some point, even if they don't have to as a matter of law, they might wish to, as a matter of fact and jury appeal, actually try and hone in on what is the theory. A jury doesn't necessarily want to pick and choose from a menu of options.
Right.
They can, but it might behoove them at some point to try and
articulate
zero in
it
on exactly what they think the step up was to get the jury to unanimously vote on one of them.
Yeah, it would seem like you have to lay out a theory of when it comes, this is the first criminal indictment of a former president, Tali, to just for the DA's office to just say, it could be one of these 4 things. I don't think certainly isn't going to satisfy Donald Trump, but just in the court of a public opinion, before this case goes to trial, you would think he would lay out exactly what he thinks the felony charge is.
Indeed. I mean, it doesn't sit well to say you either committed this crime or you committed that crime and sort of approximate a way to get to a conviction. And look, there is some case law in New York that justifies doing it that way. There's a very old case about burglary, a kind of burglary that requires an intent to commit a second crime. And the law in New York has been, well, you don't have to say if when you broke into someone's house, was it to steal something or to hurt somebody? But over time, and I think this is a good thing, we have said transparency really matters.
Yeah.
Notice to a defendant really matters, and the public is watching, as you say, Alex. So I think if they keep choosing to answer in this, well, we don't have to tell you way, it's going to grate. And Trump is going to keep pushing, and not just because he pushes wherever he can, but because here I think he actually has something to work with.
But it sounds like his case is weaker in Georgia, where they're basically trying to rewind the clock on an investigation that has sped full force ahead, and there look to be charging decisions made in the next few weeks.
Yeah, we've been told July, in the July to August timeframe. And so Trump will get to respond. He's got 3 weeks. And
do you think he'll actually get 3 weeks?
That's not that unusual. And DA Willis had, I believe, 2 months in order to respond. So there's been a rather long time frame on this. But, you know, it's put up or shut up time, and the judge is going to have to decide before July.
Okay, well, mark your calendars for July, August, or September. The list goes on. Tali Farhadian Weinstein and Danya Perry. It's so great to see you guys. Thanks for joining me tonight. When we